Welcome to Wrestling Raw!
All right, you are listening to Wrestling Raw. I am Joe. I'm here with Ryan, and our other co-host Jason is not here. He is so sick that the Raw vault has not been updated yet, so he could not join us.
Deep behind Netflix lines, trying to sabotage whatever servers he can.
He's protesting at Netflix headquarters right now, so he couldn't be with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, another somber day here at Wrestling Raw podcast.
Yeah, it's number 3 where we could say we have no updates because they haven't gave us anything yet.
Yeah, we are recording on January 22nd, and there has been no updates at all, right, Ryan? You have a Netflix account. I'm sure
Nothing.
you looked at it. And
well, I mean, and looking online, I look every few days just to see if there's any bit of noise other than people complaining.
Right.
More and more people, when you look online, seem to notice, hey, I went to go try and watch all the Raws in order, and what the fuck?
Yeah.
And that's kind of all you see is just more and more people realize that after a decade of being spoiled, of being able to just pull up any episode of Raw we wanted to watch, that's not the case anymore.
And speaking of that, I would like to make 2 formal corporate apologies. Number 1, I had some fake information that I was reading on Twitter on our last recording. If anyone heard, there was rumors that the Raw that debuted on Netflix Live had less than 1 million viewers. No, they had 5 million, almost 6 million. So
yeah, which is blowing numbers out of the water, what they were doing.
Yeah. So to honor that fake news that I was reading, I deleted the fuck out of my Twitter account. It is gone. I'm never going on Twitter ever again.
I did not see that coming.
I apologize to all of our listeners for that. And also, I think I speak for you and probably Jason on this second apology, is that I'm sorry for any negative thing I ever said about the cock, because Peacock, while it had its limitations, they did not fuck us as hard as Netflix.
No, Netflix is raw dogging it dry.
Yeah, they are.
To us.
They are really screwing us pretty bad.
And not giving us any info if it's ever going to come.
Yeah.
I mean, still the general thought is that they're going to start to add these episodes in at some point. And the way Netflix has done other content, first of the month seems to be when they just make decisions to add new stuff. So hopefully that's the case here. And the next time we're talking to you after February 1st, they've dropped all the episodes, or at the very least some more to give us some hope.
Yeah. I guess for anyone who is a fairly new listener, this is our 258th episode. Yeah. So we've been doing this for a long time, and we started this years ago, and we started with the very first Raw that aired in 1993. And we've covered...
So it was back in 2019, I think, was when we started out.
We've covered every episode of Monday Night Raw. We've covered every pay-per-view that's happened since then. We were in... July of 1998? I mean, we were in the
very beginning. We were basically at the best part of wrestling.
Yes.
We wasted 5+ years in garbage Raw, and now that we're into the good shit, it's gone.
We're getting screwed.
Screwed, just like Test.
Yeah. And it really doesn't feel good. It's the Wrestling Raw screw job. And
it is.
That is a shame. And really what Netflix is doing right now, to me, the most confusing thing of this whole thing is that there are just complete random episodes of Raw sprinkled in, and there's a whole 20-year gap missing. It just doesn't really make any sense to me how they decided to randomly add those episodes. and not all of them.
Like when you looked at the episodes they added, if you were like, oh, these are all some of the best episodes and they left out stinker episodes, which would still suck.
Yeah.
But you'd at least would make some sense. You'd say, okay, they're trying to pick the more classic episodes that people want to go back and watch and get rid of the July 6th one that we covered that nothing happened and no one cared about. But they're not doing that. They just kind of randomly are picking and choosing which ones they've added and which ones they didn't, which sucks. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, and you would think that, I don't know what it means to Netflix. I don't know what they gain out of people watching episodes of Monday Night Raw from the 90s.
I guess nothing, because their whole thing is subscribers.
I have to think, well, maybe there are some people who have Netflix and never really had any other streaming services, and they now have access to classic episodes of Monday Night Raw. Not all of them, but some of them. You would think some of those people like us and our listeners who used to be huge fans back in those days would think, wow, this is awesome that these are on here. I would like to watch all of the episodes.
Right. Like most people would want to.
Yeah, you would think that Netflix would want to add them at some point. But like we said in our last two updates, there have been no official words spoken from WWE or Netflix on what the hell they're doing with the old content.
Yeah, they don't give a shit. And that is the problem with the way streaming works and how they do their numbers. They only care about new subscribers. So if we're already a subscriber and we're bitching about something, they don't really give a fuck.
Well,
and us watching the old Raw, again, they don't care unless that's going to get people to sign up for their service. They're not going to put much thought or time into making sure that gets done.
Yeah. One thing Netflix does care about is the almighty dollar. And oddly enough, today, January 22nd, they released a statement that they will be raising their prices again.
At least in the U.S.
Yeah.
They're going to raise their prices, and for the first time, they are also raising the prices if you're on ad tier. That would make Bartlett even happier. If you have the ad tier of it, you're still getting a raise.
Well, to make Bartlett even more happy, I read an article today, and this was from The Economist. This was not on Twitter. So
that's some serious news, The Economist.
That they are actually going to be increasing their advertisements as well.
Of course. You have to double dip.
Bad news for Mr. Bartlett. But yeah, unfortunately, listeners, we do not have an update. I'm sure most of you have been researching as well and have found nothing.
Tried to watch or something.
In 2 weeks, we will be recording again, and that will be on February
4th or 5th, yeah.
So you'd hope that something would happen on February 1st, but we'll see. It's hard to believe it's only been a few weeks. It seems like we've been waiting forever.
Yeah, well, I guess it's pushing a month, but yeah, it's not quite a month yet. It's basically been exactly 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It does seem longer, but hopefully that February 1st date, we get something.
Yeah.
And we can get back in it, start watching this shit. But Netflix really laid it to us.
Yeah. I know that last week they were really boasting about Raw being the number one viewed show on Netflix and all that stuff. Just out of curiosity, Ryan, does it still pop up as soon as you open your Netflix? Does
For
Raw?
me it does,
okay.
But they know I've been watching wrestling on there. They promoted something to me that I watched, and sucks because Starz canceled it after only 2 seasons. But Netflix currently right now has that Starz show Heels about wrestling. It was like a drama about wrestling that was made a few years ago. The main person is the guy from the Green Arrow, the CW show.
Okay.
The guy that played the Green Arrow in Arrow. Mm-hmm. He is the lead whose dad just shot himself and owned this promotion, and he takes it over. It's like a Southern Territory type show.
Okay.
Lots of drama about his home life, but him and his brother having fights over who's going to win in the ring. And
maybe inspired by the Von Erich family, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a little bit there. There's only 2 of them here, though.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's fairly enjoyable. It's actually not that bad of a show. I mean, it's very drama heavy. It's a drama show.
Yeah.
But they do get into a lot of wrestling. And one thing that was kind of interesting is each episode is, well, at least for the first year, was a wrestling term. And they would kind of explain that term somewhere in that episode. Like the very first episode was kayfabe, and then the episode 2 was dusty finish. And, you know, they would just, you know, cool things like that. And they would kind of explain what the wrestling term meant.
What about screw job? Has that ever been?
There was not a screw job. There was a swerve, though,
double
where he
cross.
ends up screwing. No, one is called a double turn. That's the final
double
episode.
Turn. Okay, yeah.
The final episode of season 1 was called Double Turn, where him and his brother do a double turn. You know, they're one's evil, one's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not the best show in the world, but it's actually kind of entertaining. They do a lot of wrestling. James Harrison's actually in the first season. Mm-hmm. He plays just like a random jobber, basically, on the wrestling squad. He doesn't do a bad job.
I feel like I heard CM Punk was maybe on an episode.
He was
too.
in a few episodes.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in quite a few episodes, CM Punk. And so was Mick Foley.
Okay.
He played a podcaster that I think he was in 2 episodes. So yeah, I mean, it's worth checking out if you need a wrestling itch.
Yeah.
And you want to watch something on Netflix, but it sadly got canceled right after its second season, which ended on a major cliffhanger. So if you hate watching shows that you don't get a finish to, then maybe you don't want to watch it. But there is a lot of talk that the whole reason Netflix have added it is because they're contemplating, you know, bringing it back like they have with other shows.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility that Netflix brings it back in the near future.
It sounds like Vader did a run-in in season 2 and they had to cancel it.
I mean, it was actually season 2 wasn't too bad, and it did have a good ending. And then, you know, I knew though it wasn't going to go on, so it sucked when I saw how it ended and was like, ah, shit. You know, it just leaves you, you know, blue balls.
Yeah, that's the thing with a lot of these streaming series now is that a lot of them just stopped. Like these streaming services, there's so many series that there's series on there that just never had a finish. You know, so it's like, what's the point in even watching some of this stuff? But if that one's possibly going to come back and it's about wrestling, I'm sure many of our listeners would be interested. So that's good to hear.
And that was why they were pushing it. Like right now, they kind of added a whole category that had a lot of the wrestling content that they got from WWE. Plus, this Heels was in there, a couple other documentaries about wrestling.
They're getting a push.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure what else is going on in the classic wrestling world. Not a whole lot. I guess if you're in the U.S. and you still have Peacock, you can still watch the old pay-per-views. And from what I understand... And SmackDown, yeah. And from what I understand, some pay-per-views were probably added for our listeners that are outside the U.S. to Netflix.
And some SmackDown.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I guess that's the glimmer of light that maybe we do have, is the fact that they did in the rest of the world, or most of the rest of the world, they kind of did the same thing they did with Raw, where it's not all on there, but there's bits and pieces. So you'd have to think if this was supposed to replace the WWE network in the rest of the world, that they're going to add in all of the content that the network had, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
And for us here in the U.S., it's disappointing because Peacock is like a third of the price of Netflix for some people. So, you know, you're paying more money and you're getting way less content, unfortunately. So hopefully they just, if they're going to do a little bit at a time, that's really going to be irritating. But it looks like that might be what they're thinking. I don't really know. Like I said, it doesn't make any sense that there's a whole 20-year gap and there's just complete random episodes from the 90s in there. So,
and as we were saying, I think in our first episode after this happened, was if we at least get an indication that they're going to start to add these episodes, then we could maybe just start watching the ones we found on my server. You know, we could start back again, and then the other people could just kind of get caught up once everything gets sorted out better.
Right.
But we have to know that that's the plan. They're going to add all of the episodes back eventually. We just maybe have to wait a little bit.
Yep. Unfortunately, we don't know jack shit right now. So
yeah.
Yeah, so that is the state of Wrestling Raw. We are approaching
Part 3.
Yeah, we are approaching February 1st, which it seems like many of the streaming services, especially Netflix, seem to make some moves on the first of every month as far as their content. So, we'll be there in just a couple of weeks here, and we'll provide another update to our longtime listeners. And like I said, there are 257 other episodes for you to listen to in the archives if you're newer to this show.
Unfortunately, if you go back and listen to those, you're probably not going to be able to watch many of the Raws, but
right.
It might be still something to listen to. Maybe you don't want to watch the episodes, but listen to our recap of it and
right.
How it might scratch that itch.
Yeah, or if maybe you are going through that random Raw vault that Netflix added and you want to hear what we had to say about that episode, there is a podcast episode available to you for that. So that would be awesome. But that's pretty much all I have to update. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, Ryan.
No, I think that's about it as well. I mean, maybe I'll just end with, again, fuck Netflix.
Yeah. Absolutely. And sorry to Peacock for any of those negative things we've said in the past, because
we didn't know we had it so good.
Yeah. You did not screw us quite as hard as Netflix.
And you even have cock in your name.
Yeah.
You didn't screw us like Netflix did.
Yep.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah. So like I said, plenty of episodes in our archives if you want to check them out. If you want to check us out on social media, we are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. If you just search Wrestling Raw Podcast, you will most likely find us on there. If you want to reach us directly, we are at wrestlingraw@gmail.com. And yeah, if you want to, especially international listeners, if you want to provide us with any updates on anything that you are seeing, especially after February 1st, that would be great. wrestlingraw@gmail.com. And that is all for this week, folks. So we will be back in 2 weeks with another update.
Hopefully good news.
For Jason and Ryan, I am Joe, and this has been Wrestling Raw.